$1 billion to have someone's DNA sequenced. So it was literally something that regular people couldn't afford. But the price has dropped dramatically, and today it's something about around 5,000 US dollars, which means that if you don't try to sequence the whole genome, you can actually, all of us regular people on the street can try and find out information about their DNA. Very soon, this price will drop down from 1,000, and we might even see babies being born and already have their DNA sequenced. So what can the DNA tell you about yourself? I mean, is it something that we can actually benefit from? So of course, the doctor gene, we highly believe that this is something very beneficial. The DNA is basically the instruction for our bodies, and it basically determines a lot of our characteristics, how healthy we would come. Just a few examples of how your DNA can actually help you. For example, you're a young couple, you want to have a baby, and you want to make sure that the baby doesn't have any genetic mutations. Today, with a very simple test, this is one of the tests that we offer, you can screen for very, very common genetic mutations and make sure that your baby doesn't have conditions like beta thalassemia. I have to say, really, at this time, 2014, there is no reason why anywhere babies will still be born with genetic conditions. This is something that we can eradicate, and definitely in Hong Kong and China, where the level of awareness is quite low. Another very exciting field is personalizing our medication. So actually, we can tailor the medication so they fit us much better. We don't all respond the same to each medication. Our body breaks down the medications differently. And even today, the FDA recommends a list of very, very common medications that they encourage people to have a genetic test before starting treatment with these medications. So we also have a panel that, you will probably in your lifetime encounter one of these medications. It can be birth control pills, it can be people who have heart conditions, diabetes, cholesterol. You want to know what medication will suit you best. Do you need a higher dosage, a lower dosage? Should you avoid it? These information could be very relevant for your physician. So these are just two examples. And how do we make the test accessible to people? Well, we try to use the technology to our advantage. So we've made an online platform. People can log into our website, drg.com. They can choose from different type of packages. And what happens next is that we send them a DNA collection kit to their home. It's that simple. It's not invasive. All we need is a little bit of a swab sample. I can show you later how it looks, or a bit of saliva, and we can analyze the DNA. They can later view the results in a very, friendly way on the website. They can have a printed version to take to their physicians. So everything is, accurate, affordable. They can do it from their home. Just a little bit about, why our tests are reliable. We've invested over 2 years just researching and developing panels that will be relevant to people here in Asia. It's when we don't look at the whole DNA, when we're just looking at specific locations, it has to be ethnic, accurate, or the detection rate will be very, very low. Our scientific team based in Israel are professors, doctors that are heads of major departments in hospitals in Israel. They see patients on a daily basis, and they have a lot of information and guidance in terms of the panels that we build. We put a lot of effort in terms of the accuracy of the results. So we send it to a lab in the US that run our unique panels. And this is a CAP and CLIA accredited lab. They work with hospitals. It's the highest credentials that a genetic lab can get. In terms of the future, I think it's really endless possibilities. We keep on updating new products. We're going to launch a lot of new panels February next year. We will be able to give information about risks for cancer, things that are even related more to fun. It can be fitness, where did your ancestors come from, and I think the future is limitless. So we would literally be able to get more and more information. The more people get sequenced and the more research advanced, we will be able to tell them more things. That's our 5 minutes. Okay.
So you're going to also show the kind?
Sure. So, just so you see how easy it is, it's basically a collection kit. We have 2 products that someone gets to their home. Either they can use a swab, so they just need to scratch the inside of their mouth a little bit, and they put it in a small tube. It has a DNA stabilizer, which basically enables us to use shipping companies, regular express like FedEx, and send it, from us to the customer, from the customer to the lab. If our customers prefer, they can use saliva, so they just spit a little bit, but it's literally easy and non-invasive.
What's the time frame from taking a sample to getting it to your door? Is there like a limit to extend?
So the DNA is stabilized for a few years. The technology is so good. Yeah, you don't need to put it even like in freezers, things like that. After we extract the DNA at the lab, then we have slightly different procedure where we have to freeze it in like -40. But
once I take a sample,
it's stable.
How much is this kit, the one you're holding?
So, well, the kit itself, it's already bundled within the packages, so it really depends on the type of test that you want to do, because that's a different procedure in the lab. But we try to offer it in very affordable prices, so we have packages that start at 1,500 Hong Kong dollars. We have prices of 3,500, really depends on the information that you want.
And you mentioned it is suitable for Chinese people, right? As someone from this industry, can you explain what does it mean, like DNA sequencing, or like this?
Why is it ethnic specific?
Yeah.
So basically, the DNA is a long strand, and when sometimes the chromosome breaks in certain places, because the population used to go to different places, we see breaks in certain places that are different from people who are Westerners and people who are, like Chinese. And usually this is something that, the babies will inherit from their parents. So you see the same places in different, in a specific ethnic group. Because we don't want to sequence the whole DNA today, but this is something that will happen very soon, we just look at what we call SNPs. It's small markers in the DNA, and we have to know what we look for if we want to give an accurate result. I hope it's clear.
What is the accuracy rate?
So for example, for beta thalassemia, we can give detection rate of over 95% by just looking at something like 30 locations in the gene responsible to create a condition like beta thalassemia. So if we can offer something with 95% accuracy in $100, a lot of people will prefer that than getting 100% accuracy with $1,000. So it's literally a matter of cost. But I think once sequencing is much cheaper, then of course, everyone will do it, and you will get 100%. And you will also be able to find out more information.
When do you expect like the price to drop, let's say below 100 and then below $10, given the graph you showed?
So I think maybe towards the end of 2015 we'll already see full sequencing reaching something like $1,000. This is something that the Human Genome Project is monitoring on a yearly basis. The thing is, it's still a price that's in the lab. Obviously you have a lot of top-ups, but I think maybe, what do you think, like 3-4 years?
It's exponential.
Yeah,
so
it happens
it's a matter
quicker
of
than we
years.
think.
It's you could have sort of a margin of error because you're looking at trends. So you could do plus minus 1 year. In
But
terms
so-
of a 15-year trend is not. So it could be 2016, 2017.
Yeah, we're
You get to those
talking
price ranges.
before 2020, that's for sure, right?
Probably.
Before, yeah.
Probably
so,
well before.
Alright, so we're talking less than 5 years.
Yeah.
What is the kind of the driver bringing that cost down?
The advance of technology, exponential. If you look at the price performance of genetics, it's accelerating faster, or it's moving faster than Moore's law. Right. So if you look at that graph, actually in that graph we don't have it, but there's a line that represents Moore's law,
Yeah.
and then you see genetics going below it, and that's an exponential graph. So
Yeah.
it's massively fast.
Yeah, Prenetics, you know
Yeah.
the company? Prenetics.
Frenetics?
Yeah.
No.
You should know.
Okay. Danny Young? No? How long have you been based in Hong Kong?
A year,
Yeah, it's about a
but
year.
we started marketing a few months ago.
You should meet Danny Young.
Danny Young,
Yeah, so he showed a graph yesterday about like the Moore's law and the price coming down. What's the biggest cost right now? Obviously, like machinery is one thing, right? But we're talking variable cost per each sample. Right? So what's the biggest cost?
The biggest cost is the
Just the
lab.
DNA test.
Yeah, to actually do the DNA extraction and to run the tests with the machines.
You mentioned personalized medication, right? That's like a add-on on what you offer, right? What else, like possibilities of what you can offer as extra services or?
So we currently offer 3 panels. One is a carrier test. So basically it's focused on young couples that want to have a baby, make sure that the baby doesn't have a genetic mutation. So that's very specific. We check, for very common Mendelian diseases like beta thalassemia,
Hearing impairments.
hearing impairments, things that
It's quite common. In relative terms, would you want to take a test if you had a 1 in 100 or 1 in 500 chance of being at risk? So those are the risk levels.
Yeah, so we have the personalized medication.
And that's Chinese specific.
We have a food test. Do you really need a gluten-free diet, or are you doing it just because it's a fad? Next year we will have a cancer panel, so people will be able to find their risk for cancers that are very hereditary. So we won't check for things like lung cancer, which is very affected by the environment, but things that are related to cancer. We'll probably have a fitness package, more for fun. Are you more a sprinter or a marathon runner? The more information, our aim is really, the more information about the DNA that we can give people that's reliable, this is something that we will share and introduce.
I guess like rephrasing. So that's like one part, right? Is there a step like after that, once you provide it, once I get my results like in my email or in the ballot, right? Is there something that you guys see that you're going to be like adding on top of that? Saying like, hey, we offer like services, let it diet or whatever, anything, like, as you mentioned, possibilities.
It's a good question. Not at this point in time, but certainly something that we're thinking about. Because it just makes sense that you can offer a follow-on service. Currently what we do is we try to encourage and help people actually go and see a doctor, because these tests are quite health-related. But as the package is also expanded to lifestyle, fitness and cosmetics and all these things, then you can also offer non-health-related follow-on services.
How many tests have you done to date?
Well, we've only started marketing, maybe a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago. So we have a little bit over 100 people that actually did the test. This is something, our biggest challenge is actually to educate people. This is something that has very low awareness, and part of what we're trying to do is really approach to people and tell them, okay, this is what DNA, if you go on the street and you just ask, 10 people, what is DNA, what are genetic tests, they will not know what to say. But once they find out that, actually this is something that can benefit me, they want to do it. So we're focusing this year on Hong Kong, so we can get a certain mass. It's a very good territory, it's advanced, and after 1 year we will want to expand to other countries.
What happened to 23andMe in the U.S.?
So obviously genetic, because the technology is so advanced, it's not yet regulated. The regulation level is different in different countries. In Israel, for example, it's very, very regulated. and there are very clear guidelines as to the way that you need to give genetic tests. 23andMe in the US offered a bunch of services, some of them more reliable, some of them less reliable, and eventually the FDA decided that the type of services that they offer, you have to go through a physician. So they're currently still working with the FDA to try and get, you know, to try and streamline their service. They're now starting to offer it in Canada, because in Canada there's different
So they had a
regulation.
discussion with the Canadian health authorities, and it's completely approved.
Okay, so
So,
they're
so in
operating.
Canada they offer the health service.
Okay.
I think
Different pricing though.
you know, our
Because there's
approach.
some.
Yeah, I mean, our approach in general is that regulation is something good because it will help create a bit of order and make sure that people get real service. On the other hand, it's new technology, and you don't want regulation to stop the market. You know, we might wait 20 years before we can get information about our DNA. So, you know, I think once regulation is there,
Yeah,
it
it's
will be
a
very
great
easy
thing
for
for
us
us
to follow.
because we can then come within that regulation. And you might have noticed, for example, when we say we're launching a cancer panel, there are, let's say, other entities that say they have a cancer panel, but really to offer this in a reliable way requires a lot of diligence and being very careful in what you test for and what types of cancer and what kind of advice you give the customer post the test.
Yeah.
So we actually take these things very, very seriously. And our science board, being professors and medical doctors, are actually quite conservative, which is why when we actually launch something, it's there from a medical perspective as well. Even though we're not a clinical service, we try and do things as if we were a clinical service.
23andMe, they were offering the I don't know, the basic package for like $100, if I'm correct. What were they doing like different, or were they very shallow in the
So,
results?
yeah, so for example, for something like, you know, if they say that they cover beta thalassemia, maybe they will give you like a 10% detection rate.
Oh, okay.
Chinese.
Yeah, for Chinese especially. So for us, our panels are a bit smaller, but more in-depth.
Because they were doing globally, right? Like, it didn't matter where you come from. You could have shipped it to anywhere.
Their
Yeah,
focus
you have-
was mostly on the U.S.
But actually, no, if you add the
Yeah.
shipping price, you almost double the cost.
Yeah, I know. Like,
That's-
I was in Europe back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
actually it
like
was
another-
quite popular in the UK, those people that...
Yeah, the
Yeah.
23andMe test. Yeah, and it's also a slightly different approach. They were more about come and discover about yourself.
Yeah,
And this is an
like your
actionable
past, right? Yeah.
package. So we look at this a bit more like we have certain services, and each of these services is very coherent, and it's actionable.
Yeah.
So we also work with physicians so that we close the loop. And if you go to your doctor with the results of these tests, there's actually information that we produce for the doctors. They can give you good advice.
Are you working with doctors and stuff in any way at the moment?
Yeah. So again, we've only started, but we have a few doctors that we're working with, and this is again something that we want to expand and create awareness. Awareness is the number one issue in Asia when it comes to these types of services. And also the things that people want are slightly different than in the West.
I might have missed it. Your lab is in here in Hong Kong or back in Israel?
In the US.
Oh, even in the US. Okay. How, like, you're originally from Israel, right? As mentioned, regulation-wise, this is probably the most advanced country, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the regulation in Israel, it's quite advanced.
Yeah.
For example, it looks at everything you could possibly. Who's allowed to do it, how they're allowed to do it, what can be done with the information, it's all very there. Which is why, and also the tests are subsidized, so the pre-pregnancy tests are subsidized by the government.
In Israel?
Everybody, yeah, so everybody does them. It's
like
just a
more
routine.
than 90% of the people in
And
Israel
really,
do
what's the
that
price?
test.
Like zero, are we talking? Or like 90%?
No, you have to
subsidized?
pay. So actually, it's subsidized. It's not free. So it's partially subsidized. And also what they do is they do sort of a background check on you, and then they decide how much to subsidize. So they only give you tests that are relevant to your ethnic background.
Sure.
But if you want packages that are a bit wider, like ours, then it would cost you. So actually, you do end up paying similar. See, here we're not there yet. So this is actually one of the reasons we think this could be very useful, because we see how useful it is in other places.
How many competitors would you say there are in Hong Kong, China, and then let's take it to a more global level?
There are not a lot of competitors. I mean, there are some companies that do genetic tests. You will see some clinics that will send to a lab in a different country, a doctor that has a little bit more information. You don't really see companies here in Hong Kong yet that actually developed panels and offer their services to
the mass
consumers.
market and make it accessible.
Yeah, in China you see a few companies but just starting, not so reliable. So it's still very open market. In the US, there are much more established companies that have been doing it for a few years and they're very successful, but they're very, very focused on US markets, in their research and also in their marketing. So it's both the product and the marketing.
So you'd say the biggest problem right now for you in Hong Kong is like educating the market?
I think that's the reason why we didn't see companies like us 5 years ago. It's literally just a matter of education and the fact that people are not aware. But because we see these trends and they happen exponentially, we're positive that this is something that will happen.
Are you doing stuff like proactively on the education side of things?
So, obviously because we're a startup, our limits are, we have a resource capacity. But we do approach, for example, we started approaching NGOs here in Hong Kong, like the Thalassemia NGO. We try to be part of the community and see how we can cooperate with other organizations so we can help in terms of education. Because I really think that this is something that has value, and there's no reason why regular people wouldn't be able to enjoy it.
How big is your team, and how are you funded right now? Did you raise capital? Are you raising capital right now in the US here?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we have a few people in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is our sort of headquarters, so we do the management, the customer support, the marketing. Science team, we have a small number of people doing the science, and obviously the lab is a larger operation. We are funded. We've raised over $1 million with that from large angel investors.
In here?
Here in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is a territory that obviously it's a financial center. The money is here, and we can see it's transitioning also into sort of a more innovation-driven startup environment. So that's a process. So that's the funding and the team. Did I miss anything?
Yeah. How many people, like roughly, you said a few here, a few there?
Yeah, so we just actually hired 2 people. So I think here we have about 5 or 6.
And then the
we
lab?
have like 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah, the lab is quite a big operation,
Yeah,
but
but
it's
obviously
really nice.
it's just like we just have an exclusive collaboration with them, but they're
Got
not
it.
part of the company.
Okay. Obviously, $1 million, like for a software company, that's quite a bit. And last year, like let's say 12 months, depending on how fast you scale, this is very different industry, right? What is $1 million? Like, what's your burn rate? I don't know if you can disclose it, right? But like, if we're talking like 6 months, what are we talking about?
Yeah, it's closer to 12 months, I think, right? $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we want to do, we want to prove that there is a market here, which is something that we strongly believe in. And then I think once we have a strong business case, then we can, do another round on a much higher valuation. Of course, both of us personally have also invested in the company. This is something that we highly believe in. And we hope that it succeeds.
We know there's value.
Yeah.
There's a question of can we match it with the likes of the needs of the local.
Yeah, you've been here for a year, right? Do you sometimes like wake up and feel like, oh, maybe we're like too early and maybe we should have waited like another year? And
We have to be too early. You have to be too early in a market like this. Right? I think it's going to be extremely difficult to time it. If you want to wake up and say, wow, look at this amazing opportunity, there's 10 other companies already there, funded by Pfizer and those types of entities. So it's I think it connects with the question that you asked before, when will we see a $100 test or $10 test? And the answer was 2016, 2016, we don't know. So there's sort of a 1-2 year possible movement, and I guess it's a bit like the stock market. You can't really catch it at the peak, but you can look at the trend. So even for a year early, or a year and a half early, it's actually a very good time for us to learn the market and work with partners and establish the relationships, and it doesn't have to be that precise.
What were your backgrounds before this?
Well,
I'm
I'm from IT. So, in a past life, I was the CTO of a fairly big company, multi-billion-dollar company.
I had a consulting company that actually helped startup companies approach Asia. A lot of mostly from Israel, but also from other countries. So I've known this area from before.
Why China, right?
I think because it's a huge potential, and it's literally a new territory. It's a new territory. It's not as advanced as we see it in other countries. So there's big reroll.
Yeah, from a business perspective, but this region is not benefiting from genetics in the way we see in other places. So even if you put the business side of it aside, there's so much that we could give. There's so many benefits. There are families that have children born that are sick. These are serious diseases. These are diseases that are for life, or personalized medicine, people that their lifestyle is significantly affected, or in the future other things. So the fitness package, we will give information that helps you train your fitness regime, and we know the whole health trend. So, how does your body recover from a workout? So how frequently should you? Some people should maybe work out less frequently, and there's so many things that you could give to people. And in the West, it's a bit more accessible from a price and a logistics perspective, and credibility perspective. In Asia, credibility is key. So people are, because there's no awareness, it's all sort of connected. They're just not benefiting from the technology, and it makes sense because you see that trend, the price trend, is so steep that there just wasn't time. It moved so quickly. There wasn't time for the systems, for the health systems, for the awareness of the doctors to catch up. And so the example Lital gave, where today you have drugs which are very common drugs, where there's a standing FDA recommendation, take a genetic test. The doctors are not telling people to take a genetic test because the doctors even are not that aware. So in this part of the world, it's extremely important that someone comes in and pushes it. And actually that's where you also, I guess, can help us help people.
Would you say you have a bigger advantage because you come from Israel, like a very regulated and advanced market, or a bigger disadvantage because you're entering a market that's like very, very different from anything else? I mean, like China, right? And you're like not local.
Both. It depends on which area of the business. So from a cultural perspective, we have to be based here because we need the local team and we need the local partners because we're not in this part of the world. From access to science and from understanding of where the market might go, obviously it's an advantage because we've seen the future, so to speak. We've lived the future. We've taken these tests 10 years ago.
15 years ago.
How much did you pay?
Yeah.
What was the price back then?
Pretty much the price that you need to pay now.
But of
But
course,
it was subsidized.
Of course, something like 15 years ago, we tested maybe 20 markers.
Yeah, of course you tested less.
And today you can test, even 1 million. So the scales have also changed.
And now is the time, because of that price curve and the technology that's available to set up the business and expose the business to the world, now is the time where everything sort of converges and you can give it the right price, right service quality, right credibility, very accessible. So that's now it's happening.
What makes you the perfect team to make it happen?
The what, sorry?
What makes
Perfect
you
team.
the perfect team to make it happen here in China?
You want to tell them?
Well, we're married. So that's a good start. I think we have a good mix of talents. We have experience. Not to disrespect anyone, but we're not the 20-year-old who's trying to build an iPhone app. So we've been around. We've done businesses, sat on boards of companies, consulted other companies. So from a business, it's still, by the way, extremely hard, no matter how much you've done. But we've been around. She has the marketing and business background. I have an IT and business background, and sort of we have a good marriage, so to speak, in that sense. And also it's easier, I guess, to get through the difficulties when you have a strong relationship as well.
Because maybe we do the other company first, and then we got follow-up questions.
Just have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Will the prices go down if there's more supply? Say if there are more competitors?
Yeah, the laws of economy would say yes, but actually what we do, you asked us before what is the biggest component. Currently the biggest component is the actual testing. So because we're trying to be a mass market service, we are trying to be very, very efficient. So if competition came in, we don't feel they could probably do it cheaper than us. They would probably be more expensive than us because we're extremely tight and efficient and we're looking at the long term. But as the technology price goes down and you have competitors, for sure you'll see the prices go down. It also might be a bit like, again, in the era of computers, where initially the price will not move, but you'll get more for the money. So you'll just get more and more and more, and then eventually it'll
Okay, so now let's talk about, and let's listen to what Richard talked about his IoT